Well, let's speak to North West Durham Conservative MP Richard Holden, who's at the conference in Birmingham this morning. Welcome to the Breakfast Show, Richard. This is...
Morning, Alfie. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. The conference, is that going very well? It's from afar and from all the newspaper and from all the reports, it seems like it's a bit of a mess at the minute.
Well, I'm glad that these changes have been brought forward by the Chancellor. I'm particularly glad on getting that debt plan to see debt falling as a percentage of GDP. That's something I've backed ever since I was elected, and we have to show that debt is falling in the long term in order to maintain that confidence. And I'm also glad about the other changes he's made, because I want to see tax cuts for working people. There's 1 penny going off, 1%, going off the basic rate of income tax in next year. There's that 1.25% reduction in the national insurance contributions. That'll be kicking in November. And I want to see, my focus since I've been elected is policies to help working people and also to see our economy grow in the long term with debt falling. And I'm glad that the changes that have been made in the last couple of days are moving in that direction.
What do you think the working people, who you've mentioned twice already, in your constituency will make of the conference so far, with the headlines they're waking up to this morning? Damage is done. These are the front page headlines this morning. Chancellor laughs off his top tax U-turn. The lady is for U-turning. That's the front page of the Daily Star. What a day. The Metro Chancellor U-turns on his cut. Get a grip, the front page of the Daily Mail. It sounds like chaos.
Well, look, whenever you make a change, whenever something's been announced, as Liz and Kwasi have done, you're always going to get a bit of negative headlines. But I think the right thing to do is to get the policy right in the end. And I think they have done. Remember, all of these things...
Is that leadership? If you do something in the end, is that leadership? Shouldn't you do that in the beginning?
I think to be fair, as you know, I didn't back Liz for the leadership. However, I do think we've got to give a chance now. And I think it does actually take quite some strong leadership to them sometimes to admit that you got it a bit wrong. 90% of it's right, but she got it a bit wrong, and she's now ensuring that we're going to be pursuing the right path. A tweak to the overall package in order to ensure that we can deliver those tax cuts on income tax for basic rate taxpayers, on national insurance for everybody, and to get debt falling as a share of GDP. I think those are the things I want to see, and those are the things my constituents want to see. And, sometimes when you're a brand new Prime Minister, brand new Chancellor, difficult circumstances, then, you're not going to get everything absolutely perfect first time. But that's the way it is.
Are you not a little bit concerned that usually a first conference for a new Chancellor or a new Prime Minister is the honeymoon period? It's usually the victory lap. This is anything but that.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it isn't. It really depends on the circumstances. What we've seen of it, it certainly wasn't. After I was elected, and all those other new MPs in 2019, and we had that conference in 2020. That was in the middle of COVID. So it just really depends on the circumstances of it that the country and the world finds itself in.
Well, let's talk about one of the reasons you were elected was because of levelling up. The government promised to level up and to make things more fair for constituencies like yours and for other red wall constituencies. Has that gone by the wayside? Is that still being talked about?
Well, that's the sort of thing that I'm really keen on, and that's one of the reasons, as I was saying before, I want to see if there are going to be tax cuts, and I'm all in favour of those. They've got to be targeted at people in constituencies like mine who will go out to work hard every day. That's why I was glad to see them raise the threshold earlier this year, at which you start to pay national insurance. So now you can earn around $12,500 a year before you pay any income tax or national insurance, which is good news. And they've also now brought forwards when they're reducing income tax, and that's going to kick in next April. So I think those things are really important, and that's what I want to see them concentrating on when they talk about levelling up for individuals. But more broadly, you can look at what's happening in Teesside. We've got some new investment zones being bid for now for Teesside, as well, which will
Everyone always
also help.
points to Teesside. You're not in Teesside, really, are you? You're sort of further inland, and it's a different part of the northeast. Are you worried as well that the Chancellor is going to bring in huge welfare cuts that will cut benefits and pensions for your constituents?
Well, I don't think there's any. I think the triple lock has been committed to now. I think that's going through. But I just wanted to say something about your last comment about Teesside. The truth is that our region operates as a whole, and 2/3 of my constituents actually don't work in northwest Durham. They go and work in other parts of the northeast, whether that's at the big Nissan plant in Sunderland, which employs about 500 of my constituents, whether it's up in the rest of Tyne and Wear, which is another big employment area for them, or whether it's in Teesside. A lot of people across the region will travel to other parts for work. So it's really important that, whether it's Team Valley or whether it's the big estates at Newton Aycliffe, where a lot of the jobs are in County Durham, or whether it's Teesside, it's really important we don't see our little patches as individual hubs, but actually we're part of a big ecosystem across the northeast, where if one part's doing well, other parts can do well as well. So I don't want to see us sort of be too parochial about it either. But I do want to see, particularly for pensioners who don't have the option ever of going, often, I think of my own granddad who's 89. There's no way he can go and work and earn more money. So I think it's particularly important, especially with all the pressures of things like energy prices at the moment, petrol and diesel prices, although they've come off the tops, they're still pretty high. I think we do need to ensure that that they get the support that they need. But the thing that I campaigned for earlier this year, Alfie, was a reduction in the taper rate on universal credit. And that's what I want to see as much as we can, which really helps working people, but who are on low incomes, and that's what I want to see the help.
So are you convinced the Chancellor will go along with this? Because some people are actually terrified about real-term huge welfare cuts.
Well, I don't want to see huge welfare cuts, but what I do want to see is what is outlined so far, which is tax cuts for people in work, to anything to incentivise people into work and to keep people in work, because jobs are so important, and they're not just important for the persons and put a few quid in the bank. But I was listening to your previous comments about health. Actually, my dad was unemployed for 8 years, and the biggest impact I saw it take on him was on his physical and his mental health. And I think that's why it's so important that we get the economy keeping to grow. And, we've still got slightly higher unemployment across the northeast and other parts of the country, even though we've actually got record vacancies as well and record numbers in work. And I think what's really important is we keep growth going so that we keep those jobs in the economy, and more and better paid jobs as well. That's what I want to see us doing, pushing for growth and then keeping taxes lower for working people wherever we can.
Even if all of that means cuts to public services, because again, there's a cloud over that, and there's lack of clarity over that.
Well, look, he's going to have to outline his full plans in time, but you've also got to look on the flip side. We've got record spending, and some of that is due to the fact of some of those big demographic factors. We've got record spending because we've got an older population than we used to have. We got criticised a few weeks ago for having, very high historic levels of tax, which is true, but that's because we're seeing a big demographic change. We have an older population who require more health and social care than previous generations. I think it's right that we invest, but the key thing we can do to pay for those public services is grow the economy, get people into work, but not just any work, wherever possible. We want them in good jobs which are going to deliver that productivity growth, which is the way you deliver the taxes to pay for the public services. And I think that's what the Chancellor's outlined. I think there were a couple of tweaks that needed to be made to his fiscal statement, and I think they've done that. They've listened to MPs like me.
You say tweaks, a screeching U-turn is how many in the media say it. And also in your own party, I could just rattle off a big list of big beasts: Michael Gove, Nadine Dorries, Michael Heseltine, Eric Pickles. They've all questioned Liz Truss's leadership, Grant Shapps, in one way or another. Do you think she'll still be Prime Minister next spring? And will there be a general election next year?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think the Conservative Party, 2024 is when everybody sort of said so far. The next general election is going to be. But I do think, and having been on the other side, having been a supporter of Rishi Sunak earlier on, I think we've got to give Liz Truss a chance now she's been elected to set out her agenda as she has done with this growth plan, and then see how she does. I'm not one of these people who can't accept when they didn't win. I'm prepared to put my hands up and give her a chance. So I don't think talk like that's helpful. What I want to see is politicians from all sides concentrating on how we can grow the economy and keep taxes as low as we can for people, particularly people in work, but not in the highest paid jobs, so that we encourage everybody into work and to get good jobs and contribute to the economy and also to their own health and well-being.
Richard, thanks for coming on again. North West Durham Conservative MP Richard Holden there, who's at the conference in Birmingham. 81